This is Dynasty Ireland, and you are watching the Dynasty Hotseat.
Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are back once again on the only Dynasty show out there that is a certified Inferno. It is the Dynasty Hot Seat. Welcome back, and we've got a very welcome return guest. We've got Rich at Dynasty Island. You know him from loads of stuff. He's a senior contributor over at DLF. He's one of the two founders of the absolutely wonderful Fantasy Sanctuary. And of course, marathon runner extraordinaire, Rich. How you doing, mate? Great to have you back in the show.
Yeah, thank you ever so much for having me back on, Mags. This is always a joy, always a pleasure. So yeah, always look forward to coming on and getting to chop it up with you.
Absolutely. And couldn't think of a better guest to come on to have our first post-draft mock draft. Things are going to look very different to the last one of these that we did. I'm not sure I've seen a shake-up quite like it. I'm really looking forward to getting it. Rich, have you seen anything like this before where draft boards just look so drastically different?
No, I mean, no is the true answer. I think we kind of expected it. There's a true lack of kind of elite talent at the top.
Yeah.
And a huge plethora of good but not great options. So landing spot, draft capital, how things played out were always going to have a huge impact. So yeah, I think we were expecting it, but I don't remember a year quite like this where it feels like one person's ranks to the other vary so hugely.
Yeah, absolutely. And always look forward to seeing how your ranks are looking. So no time like the present, Rich. Let's pull up our sleeper board here. You've got all the picks here. We're going to go through. We're going to put a 0.75 premium on the tight ends as well. So we'll see what that does for those tight ends up at the top of the board. Rich, before, there was a couple of people that were in contention for this number one pick. It's kind of really down to two people now, and it's basically just one for most people. Who's the first guy off the board for you?
Yeah, it is straightforward one. Ashton Genty's 101 for me. I think, I do this thing in my rookie guide where basically I grade players. I give people a star rating, a bit like, high school prospects, 0 through to 5. Ashton Genty's the only 5-star prospect this year. He's the only truly elite talent that I feel very, very confident is going to be elite. There is another player that I would say is an elite talent, but he's got a slightly different question mark over him. I'm sure we'll come to very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And Genty, this is like the ideal landing spot for Genty as well. Like that coach Pete Carroll, he's going to run the hell out of the ball. No real competition over there. This is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Do you think he's got a chance of actually being running back one overall as a rookie here?
I mean, he's got a chance. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I'd take the field. But yeah, he's absolutely got a chance. I think he's a great landing spot in terms of scheme. Like Chip Kelly's phenomenal. We know that they're going to run the ball. I think we may be overblowing how good this offensive line is. I think they've got 2 above average starters. I think they've got 3 question marks, which makes me a little bit nervous. But, Genty, you just got to look at the way he runs, the broken tackled records, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, he can get it done without an offensive line. The hope is that, if they invest over the next year or two, maybe we can take things to a whole nother level.
Yeah, absolutely. And not too much else to say about Ashton Genty, really. I think what needs to be said about him has been said. So let's move on to pick number 2. Rich, where are you going with this?
So Superflex, to me, this is a fairly flat tier of 3 guys here. I think you could probably argue a 4th guy as well, but I've got to go with the quarterback value. So I'm going to go Cam Ward.
Yeah, Cam Ward's undisputed quarterback. Well, I mean, no one's really taken Shedeur Sanders over Cam Ward right now. He's gone number 1 to the Titans. Rich, do you think it's exciting that he gets to play with the best wide receiver in the league, Calvin Ridley, and the 4th best wide receiver in the league, Treylon Burks?
Well, it's interesting because, I'm not sure the Titans brass necessarily agrees with that because they went and spent out quite a lot of draft capital and quite a lot of undrafted free agents at the wide receiver position. So, maybe they don't necessarily agree. But I think what the Titans have done is that they've not chased the kind of the big ticket items. They've not chased the glory stuff. They've had a really kind of meat and potatoes off season to build around Cam Ward. You know, the Zeit addition in free agency, like it's a solid offensive line. It's not incredible, but it's serviceable. And I feel like that with the wide receiver position. It's solid, it's serviceable. And they've done the right thing to give Cam Ward every opportunity to prove that he is that kind of franchise cornerstone QB.
All over the draft, the NFL Network correspondents were saying this guy's just like Baker Mayfield, just like Baker Mayfield. I don't know if I fully agreed with that comp to Baker Mayfield. Did you see that, or would you liken him to someone else?
No, I mean I hate comps. I'm not a comp guy. I think they're lazy. I get why people do them, but I don't love them personally. I don't see Baker Mayfield at all. I think he's got similar to Baker Mayfield in that he's got a very big arm in terms of he can throw the ball far, but not necessarily a strong arm, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think he's far more inventive as a thrower than Baker in terms of arm angles and release points and things like that. I think as a scrambler, he's Patrick Mahomes to me. I think he's really intelligent. I think we'll see him pick up a lot of those. You know, I always call them the back-breaking scrambles, where it's like 3rd and 9, Patrick Mahomes drops back. You think he kind of drifts out of the pocket and you think, oh, they've got him here. And then he just scrambles for a first down and gets out of bounds. And it's like, that was too easy. That's Cam Ward as a scrambler. As a passer, I don't really know if I see a natural comp in the NFL right now, but there's a little bit of Geno Smith in terms of that creative arm talent, arm angles, things like that. But yeah, not a 1-for-1 for sure.
Yeah, definitely not. So he's locked in at 2. This is where most people are going, and somewhere else most people should be going, Rich, is right towards that subscribe button on the Dynasty Hotseat, because we're on the march here. We're trying to get to that magic 1,000 number. We're getting closer and closer every day. Rich, you know the story with YouTube. You know about 80% of people right now, they're not subscribed. What do you got to say to these people?
Look, it's not complicated. Mags is phenomenal. The production values are phenomenal. He gets some great guests, some average guests, but you know that he produces fantastic content. So hit the subscribe button and you will not regret it. I guarantee it.
Absolutely. Listen to this man. He knows what he's talking about. So we got Genty locked in. We got Cam Ward locked in. Who's following up at pick number 3?
So this is my wide receiver 1. It's going to be Tet McMillan. Really good prospect. I think if you were giving me, percentage outcomes, I think it's pretty small that he ends up being a dynasty wide receiver 1. But I think it's a very high likelihood that he spends the next 5-6 years as a dynasty wide receiver 2 or 3. I think he's just that really good, probably 3rd or 4th tier wide receiver for the next foreseeable future, at least.
Yeah, and I know you've always been traditionally anyway a big fan, or not a big fan, certainly a fan of Bryce Young. Do you think Tet McMillan might be the guy that we can get the best out of Bryce Young finally and see him come along?
I really hope so. I think that this is a guy that, he's a big bodied, he's a contested catch monster, but he's not just that. He's got good footwork, he's got good separation skills. And I think that, an accurate on-time passer like Bryce Young, that's going to thrive. So I'm really excited that what they could be together, and hopefully they bring the best out of each other.
Yeah, I think if Adam Thielen could be so relevant in that offense, like Tet McMillan could be really time to shine for him. Looking forward to seeing what Tet can do. Rich, this is exactly what my draft would look like right now as well. Let's see if it keeps going at pick 4.
So at 4, it's Amari Hampton.
Yep.
Love the player. Really like the landing spot. I think there's some people that are concerned about Najee Harris. I'm not. I think we'll see Hampton take over by the end of this year. I think it's a nice 1-2 punch to start the year, but I think it's going to be very much a 60-70% split to Hampton by the end of the year. And look, Greg Roman, we know he's going to run the ball. We know he's one of the most creative run game coordinators in the league. So I'm very excited about what he could do with a talent like Hampton.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not too particularly afraid of Najee Harris either. I wonder if we'll see Najee kind of revert back to what we've seen with his rookie season with Big Ben, where he caught 1 million passes. Do you think that might be the role that Najee has, and Hampton's in there to thump and get the yards on the ground?
Well, I kind of hope not, because I think that Hampton's got some untapped potential as a pass catcher. So, I as a fantasy fan, I'd like to see Hampton getting those high value touches, which is the receiving game and the goal line work. So, if we're gonna have to give 30% of work to Najee Harris, hopefully it's those boring carries between the 20s on first and second down, rather than the exciting ones that can add significant value.
Yeah, let's hope so, certainly. But I'm in agreement with you. I don't think that Hampton's going to find it too difficult to wrestle that number one spot off Najee Harris. So he's locked in. We got 2 running backs off the board, 1 wide receiver, 1 quarterback. Who's going next? Is this where you start to factor in the tight end premium, or not quite yet?
Not quite yet. This is going to be Travis Hunter. Now, I have Travis Hunter in a tier of his own. Depending on your risk appetite, I could equally argue to take him too. In fact, for the past 3 months, I've been sitting here saying if a team drafts him as a pure wide receiver, he'd be my 101, and that would still be the case. The fact that Jags are saying he's primarily receiver just leaves that little bit of doubt, and I think that for me, this is where I'm comfortable taking the risk. If you've got a little bit higher risk tolerance, shall we say, I think you need to be drafting him earlier, because the upside is absolutely elite. This guy's got top 6 dynasty wide receiver potential. I think he could be absolute game breaker for fantasy and could be phenomenal paired with an elite quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. So yeah, I'm really excited about what he could be, but just that question mark of could he lose snaps because he's going to be playing both ways means this is where I'm comfortable taking that risk.
What do you think's happened with that landing spot in particular, where before he ended up at the Jags and it was just a bit of a mystery, people were afraid to take Travis Hunter even this high, and now you're right, you're seeing him go even higher than this. What in particular happened, or do you think it's because other players fell and people are just more willing to take a risk on Hunter now?
I think it's the Jags coming out and saying he's a wide receiver first. I think that's the thing that's changed. I think 2 months ago, people were expecting him to be a corner that played some wide receiver, and I think for fantasy, you can never start him, because if you've got a guy who might play 20 snaps 1 week, might play 5 snaps the next week, and then might play 40 snaps the week after, how do you know when to put him in your lineup? So you can't draft a guy like that in the first round. Whereas now the Jags are saying he's going to major in offense, minor in defense. I'm intrigued enough that I think the risk is worth the kind of swing here as such.
And I think I've seen not much, but a couple of people sort of shying away from him because they're worried about Brian Thomas. I think we're well gone from the days that you can only produce 1 wide receiver, 1 on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at where Liam Cohen was with the Bucks. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, when they were both healthy on the field, were top 9 wide receivers in points per game last year. Yeah. Enough said. We've seen it. Devonta Smith had a borderline wide receiver 1 season whilst playing opposite AJ Brown. T. Higgins has been borderline wide receiver 1 when healthy, or playing opposite Jamar Chase. Like, we've seen Jalen Waddle have a borderline wide receiver 1 season. Like, there's plenty of teams that can do it. I think you need to have the quarterback and the offensive coordinator or a play caller that's going to unlock that. I think Liam Cohen is that. And look, I'm a huge Trevor Lawrence fan. I still believe he's an elite quarterback, and I think that he's talented enough to force feed the ball to these two. And this isn't an offense that's got, a running back that's going to see 200 carries and 100 targets, or a tight end that's, going to see north of 100 targets. There's not much else in this wide receiver room. There's not much else in tight end room. I'm a huge Brent Strange fan, but I don't think he's going to see north of probably 80 targets. Yeah. So that means there's a lot of balls to go around to Brian Thomas and to Travis Hunter.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to see Hunter line up alongside Brian Thomas and everyone else over at the Jags. He's locked in at 5. Who's right after him at pick 6?
Yeah, so for me, this is quite a clear cutoff here. I think those top 5 are, as I said, I could argue Hunter basically anywhere in those picks. I think Genty's ahead of the other 3, but that's very much a tier of 5. And there's quite a drop down to this next group. I'd grab Colson Lovelin here. I think the Titan premium plays into it, but I think this is a guy that's an elite prospect. Love the landing spot, love the draft capital. So yeah, really excited about what he could be in this Bears offense. Yes, there's lots of mouths to feed, but that doesn't necessarily concern me. When have we ever been worried about drafting good players because they're on good offenses? Increased touchdown equity makes me intrigued. So yeah, I'm happy to go and grab Loveland here as my 6th overall player.
I'm thinking there might be a buy window this time next year for Colson Lovelin. I'm going to jump all over it.
I think we say this every year for these kind of hopeful tight end prospects, and it never comes. People were saying this last year about Brock Bowers. Oh, if he has a slow start because of the quarterback, because of the situation, maybe there's a buy window, I can grab it. I can guarantee you now, Brock Bowers is worth a hell of a lot more than he was this time last year. I'm not saying Colson Lovelin's gonna be Brock Bowers, but he's a 96th percentile prospect. Like, I'm very excited about what he could be.
Yeah, me too. He was, my tight end one pre-draft, and glad to see he's got the capital to back that up, which is great to see. Tyler Warren, obviously a great player as well. We'll get to him a little bit later, or do we get to him right after at 1-7, Rich?
No, definitely not. I'm not the biggest Tyler Warren fan. I think there's some question marks there, but we'll come on to that in a bit. Then we're going to go running back again. I'm going to go Trevon Henderson. I think perfect fit for a Drake May offense, that explosive option that this offense needs, an improved offensive line, going to see high value touches. I think people are talking down, whether Ramondre is going to hang around or what. I think Ramondre is a perfect complement to him. I think he can take some of that between the tackles, heavy work, and keep Henderson fresh, and we can see him really excel in a limited, a lesser role, but not a limited role, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of people sort of poo-poo in the landing spot for Henderson, and I don't fully get it. I mean, they obviously invested in that offensive line in the first round. They're building something over there with Drake May. He's not going to come in and have to, be an absolute hammer from the start. And it's not like we're not used to seeing Trevon Henderson share a backfield. I'm with you, Rich. I really like this landing spot at New England.
I think people were dreaming of the Chiefs, weren't they? So any landing spot compared to that, it's always going to be slightly disappointed. I still think it's a below average offensive line. I think the presence of Stevenson, who is a good pass catcher, could take some away. So I don't think it's a great landing spot, but I think it's solid. And I think the talent and the opportunity is there. The draft capital's there. So yeah, I'm excited about what he could be.
Yeah, I had to resign the fact that I didn't see a possible way that he was going to end up on my Chiefs. So I was trading up, which it's not very like the Chiefs to trade up and go get a running back. So I'd resign myself, sadly, unless he's going to fall to the back of the second, which he sadly didn't. But he's locked in at pick number 7. Quite often we see his teammate go right behind him, Rich. Is that what's happening with you as well?
His former teammate from Ohio State? Yes, absolutely.
Teammate, yeah.
We're going to go Quinton Judkins here. I think he's the final guy that I can comfortably say I think is going to be a workhorse. Yes, okay, it's not the sexiest offense, but I think Stefanski's going to get back to his tradition, what he believes in, which is run the ball, 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets, and be kind of that heavy bully as such. And I think Quinton Judkins is exactly perfect for that. I love the addition of Dylan Sampson that they had obviously in the day 3 as a kind of thunder and lightning backfield. But I think that Judkins is going to be the bulk of the backfield, and I'm very excited about what he could be moving forward.
Yeah, they're going to be running 2 tight end sets, 2 quarterback sets, 2 running backs. They'll be running all kinds of sets over there at Cleveland, right? With absolute mess. I think this is a great landing spot. It's just, and I don't know if I'm falling into a trap here, but certain teams you're just like, yes, that is a great fit, like for the culture. Like we've seen Nick Chubb do it. Whenever he landed there, I just got really excited for Judkins. Do you try and avoid that where you're like, no, this is a new season, doesn't, just because traditionally we've seen Browns running backs be good doesn't mean it's going to happen now, or do you get swept up by it a bit as well?
Yeah, no, look, I try to remove everything. I try to be as clinical and clean as possible and remove any sort of emotion from everything. But yeah, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. As soon as I saw him there, it's like, oh, this is Nick Chubb 2.0. So yeah, no, I do get the excitement. I do get that appeal. But yeah, as a fancy analyst, I try to do everything as clinically and straightforward as possible.
The exact opposite of me. I just kind of like I don't know, go by the vibes, Rich. You know that. So we got him locked in at 8. Couple of picks after the first round. Who's following up on pick 9?
Yeah, so this is the point where I grab Tyler Warren. The draft capital and kind of the underlying numbers, you've kind of got to buy in at some point. I think he's a good player. I think people are completely misunderstanding what he is. I don't think he's good enough as a blocker to be able to line up as a Y and 9 tight end from day one. I think this is a really bad landing spot because we've got quarterbacks. All 3 quarterbacks that are on the roster have got accuracy issues. We don't think he can line up as a Y. So does that mean he's going to be the big power slot? Well, you've got one of the best slot wide receivers, pure slot wide receivers in Josh Downs. Are we going to be able to move him outside and have those kind of quick RPO style underneath targets? Well, that's where Michael Pittman thrives. Like, I just don't know the fit. Yes, okay, he's a tight end. The Colts needed a tight end, but I don't believe this is a good landing spot. But at some point, he's a very talented player. He got picked 14th overall. You just got to go with draft capital and talent and kind of punt it here.
Yeah, it didn't strike me that the Colts issue last year was lack of receiving weapons. So I'm not sure, what Tyler Warren is going to do to fix that stuttering offense. Anthony Richardson, I mean, I just don't see Anthony Richardson being like the best friend of a tight end. Just the way that he plays. He's more of a either sling it downfield or take off and run. I'm not sure they're going to build a great rapport. Are you worried about that, Rich? Or are you thinking it's not going to be Richardson anyway?
I think this is, look, after the horse's bolted, you're trying to make everything you can about being Anthony Richardson, isn't it? The only way that Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard keep their jobs is if Anthony Richardson is the long-term answer. Well, they've already given him a plethora of wide receiver options. What else can they do? Well, you could throw some bodies at the offensive line. I'm not sure that's going to massively impact things. Why not give him another playmaker that can do some stuff after the catch and hope that can kind of unlock Anthony Richardson? So I get it, but I think that, as you said, it probably wasn't the number one need, but yeah, they kind of had to do it.
Excellent Colts pun there with the horses bolted. That was fantastic, Rich. Well done. Let's
fully intended, of course.
Yeah. We got 3 picks left here. Who's going at pick 10 in the first round?
So this is where I'm going to go with RJ Harvey. This feels like the ultimate boom bust pick. You know, Sean Payton has just had a proven track record of absolute fantasy success from the running back position. He's come up, grabbed RJ Harvey. I'm a little bit worried about the age. I'm a little bit worried about the size, the profile. But in terms of fun to watch, explosive, can score from anywhere, he's amazing. So, yeah, I feel like the 10th pick is where the risk is comfortable with what the season outcome could be.
I'm so pleased for RJ Harvey. I'm also furious because this has been my guy for so long. Obviously, I come on to the Fantasy Sanctuary a few months ago, Rich, and kind of wax lyrical for a bit about RJ Harvey. Took him in the middle of the second, which was deemed early to take him then. He's going in the first round. I feel like I'm owed a couple of RJ Harvey shares from people who watch the show who should just let him fall to me in the second. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I get the pain. I get the pain. This happened when you fall in love with a guy and then suddenly he gets draft capital. You're all excited that he's got good draft capital, and then you're like, oh man, but that means I'm not going to get him at all. Yeah. So yeah, it's painful.
Yeah, I'll just pick up Xavier Restrepo for free instead, and that'll make me feel better about some of my guys. So we got him locked in, RJ Harvey at 10. People saying, I mean, again, the links we talked about earlier. Alvin Kamara keeps coming up. That's too lofty, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're comparing him to a potential future Hall of Famer. Like that's ridiculous. Just because, you know, who's a good back in a Sean Payton offense that catches pass and is good in space? Yeah, well, Alvin Kamara's the only one. Why not also throw out, you know, Reggie Bush and Darren Sproles? They're all completely different players, but they played for Sean Payton, so that's got to be the obvious comp, isn't it?
I feel like anyone short the NFL Network in particular, like Darren Sproles, it's like, okay, we get it, right? Like, I got
Darren Sproles was a one of one. He will never happen ever again. He was so unique and so much fun. Yeah, I will never believe it.
Absolutely. Well, hey, maybe someday people will be saying this guy's the next RJ Harvey. Who knows? He's locked in at 10. 2 more picks of the first round. Where we're going?
So this would be Emeka Egbuka. Love the talent. Love the draft capital. Love what he could be. Just a little bit disappointed that he ends up on an offense where I don't know what they're going to do. You know, his perfect role, his dream scenario is Chris Godwin 2.0. And are we gonna push Chris Godwin outside? and maybe not get the best out of him, or are we going to let Ibuka go outside and not get the best out of him? I don't know, but it feels like this is probably a player that you're drafting and saying, I'm not touching him really. I'm not using him until 2026.
Do you think a certain aspect of the Bucks? I mean, they just give him a new contract, so maybe not. They must be getting sick of Chris Godwin getting injured.
Maybe. I mean, as you said, they've just given him a new contract. Like, I don't think you draft a player for the first 3 weeks of the season in the first round. Like, obviously, Mike Evans is 31 now. His contract runs out at the end of the season. I mean, I don't personally get it. I think Jalen McMillan showed enough to be a competent 3. I think if you're saying we're in a win now window, why on earth you're not going out and addressing corner or edge in the first round and going grabbing? Yeah, hopefully he's more than the 4th wide receiver, but essentially a 4th option at wide receiver. I don't get it. I don't understand the pick, but I love the player. So it feels like this is the point at where the price becomes sensible.
Yeah, absolutely. Great value getting Ibuka there. Really talented player for sure. He's in at 111. Who's the final pick of the first round? And are you kind of like me? I find like this part in particular, there's like a huge big tier now of just like, I don't know, like get this guy.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think after kind of Tyler Warren, that's the point at which I'm looking. Maybe can I get, a 26 first plus something else? Yeah. Can I get 3 second-round picks? Can I, get a 21st, 27 first and second, something like that? Those are the type of moves I'm looking to make because, after Judkins goes off the board, I think there's a big teardrop. But yeah, I don't love these late firsts. I think unfortunately a lot of the draft capital and landing spots kind of killed these back end of the first round picks. But I'm going to go Jaden Higgins here. Really like the talent, really like the profile, love the landing spot. Quite interesting that he's, across from Nico Collins when I think Nico Collins is his kind of 100th percentile outcome.
Yeah.
But yeah, just think it's a natural fit, and I think he should be able to start and see significant volume straight away.
Do you think they're going to use them almost like you see the Bengals use like Chase and Higgins, where you just have these 2 big body guys and they're just gonna sling it?
Potentially. I mean, obviously Chase is a little bit different where he gets a lot of, manufactured touches, gets moved into the slot some last year and kind of isn't just that beanpole outside. I'd like to see Jaden Higgins used not just as that kind of outside downfield receiver. I think he's useful on those in-breaking routes and could potentially be used there as well. But yeah, I think, look, this offense is going to be CJ Stroud and let's run with that. And so if you've got 2 guys outside that can win one-on-one and particularly in contested catch situations, you'd be silly not to let them push the ball around.
Yeah, it's they're building a really exciting offense there for sure. So that ends up that wraps up the first round. Rich, what we'll do, we'll pick up the pace a little bit in round 2. If you could give me your 2-1, 2-2, and 2-3, and then pick one of those players in particular to zone in on and speak about.
Yeah, so 201, Luther Burden, 202, Harold Fanning Jr., 203, Jackson Dart. Let's talk about Luther Burden. Look, this is the guy who's got the widest range of outcomes in this entire draft. If you told me he was a top 12 dynasty wide receiver, the clear wide receiver 1 in this draft class, I'd believe you. If you told me that he was a roster clogger that you can never start, he can't get open, he can't run routes, he is just a manufactured touches gadget guy, I'd believe you. Like, honestly, anything can happen, and I truly believe it. He is the Tyson Zone of NFL wide receivers now.
He's going to struggle to get those manufactured touches at the Bears, you'd think, right? We talked about those mouths to feed. What do you think is going to happen there? Where does he fit in?
Who knows? I think DJ Moore is probably going to have to be a traditional wide receiver. I think Rome Odunze is probably going to be the Z flanker. Colson Lovelin is going to be used as a traditional Y inline tight end. They've not addressed running back, and we know that Ben Johnson doesn't like or doesn't rate DeAndre Swift. So maybe that's it. Maybe Luther Burden is going to be the manufactured touch guy on the screen game and kind of that, where we say the passing game is your replacement for the run game. I wonder if that's his role, and he's going to be that kind of slot heavy guy. But who knows, to be honest? I don't know. And as I said, I would pretty much believe anything.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So we got him and Fadden and Dart locked in. Who's your next group of 3 at 4, 5, and 6 in the second round?
So we'll go Caleb Johnson, Mason Taylor, and then Trey Harris. And I'll let you pick which one you want me to talk about.
Oh, let's go. Why don't we go with Trey Harris, actually? Because whenever he was drafted to the Chargers, I kind of like sat up a bit and I went, oh, that's quite nice. Did you do the same reaction?
Yeah, I mean, he's literally exactly what they need, isn't it? A big-bodied outside receiver that can win contested catches. I think he's going to take a little bit of time to get up to speed. I think he needs to kind of round out his game and work on some of the more nuanced stuff. Well, the good news is that he's got Mike Williams, who's one of the best outside of the numbers, downfield targets, as long as he can stay healthy. So if he can spend a year learning from Mike Williams and kind of develop there, I'm really excited about what he could be. And I think that he could be, a really useful, reliable fantasy weapon as early as the back end of this year. And, as we're talking sort of fantasy playoff time, I wouldn't be shocked if he's in that week to week kind of wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 territory.
We heard a lot of chatter about Jackson Dart and coming from the Lane Kiffin offense at Ole Miss. Do you have any reservations about the wide receivers on that same offense, or do you think it's a little bit different because of the quarterback and the processing that's needed there?
Yeah, massively concerned because, Trey Harris basically ran the majority's routes with 9 routes and comebacks. Like there wasn't much nuance there, but we've seen players with this sort of profile be able to develop that at the NFL. And that's where I'm saying I'm not expecting him to be a stud from day one. He's a different type of athlete to DK Metcalf because he's not got the raw speed of DK Metcalf. But DK Metcalf's rookie year, he basically ran, slants, comebacks, and goes, and that was it. And I kind of expect something similar from Trey Harris. But that's where I'm saying I want him to work on the nuanced stuff. I think he can develop. But even if he doesn't, I think he can be fantasy relevant in that offense with Justin Herbert under center, running a very, very limited route tree because of the juice that we get from Lab McConkey as a route runner in that kind of short to intermediate area of the field.
I suppose we kind of seen if QJ could catch, he would have been fantasy relevant. So you think Trey Harris hopefully has better hands like that, and Justin Herbert can continue to find them on those deeper routes.
Yeah, actually, I heard someone the other day say, if we could just clone Trey Harris and Quinton Johnson together, it would be the perfect receiver in terms of Quinton Johnson's phenomenal yards after the catch, underneath routes, but can't catch. And then Trey Harris is that great downfield guy, but doesn't have the kind of raw speed that Quinton Johnson has. So between the two of them, maybe they're the perfect X wide receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. They're building something there for sure. So we've got 2 more blocks of 3 to go, Rich. Who's going next at 2-7, 2-8, and 2-9?
So we'll go Tyler Shuck, Terrence Ferguson, and then Matthew Golden.
Let's go Tyler Shuck's all the way down here. Terrence Ferguson and Tyler Shuck, Rich.
I was going to say you can't say that to me about Tyler Shuck and then not let me talk about him. Look, this is purely a super flex play here, okay? Yeah. How often can you spend the 207 on a quarterback that could potentially start week 1?
Yeah,
like it doesn't happen. Yes, he's a veteran. He's very old. Interesting nugget. He's probably going to be the last ever player drafted from the 19th century, from the 20th century in terms of the 1900s, which I thought was an interesting little nugget.
That's quite good.
But yeah, like he's not electric for fantasy. He doesn't rush. He's not one of these guys that's going to push the ball downfield and have huge touchdown numbers. But he could be a reliable starting weapon. It's sounding like Derek Carr might have played his last game for the New Orleans Saints. I wouldn't be shocked if he's traded, released, whatever they're going to do. There is talk that he is done in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I don't think Spencer Rattler is a competent starter. So, they spent decent draft capital on Tyler Shuck. I wouldn't be gobsmacked if he starts 8-9 plus games this year and could be a reliable starter in 2026 and beyond. And being able to get that for the 207 feels like an absolute steal.
Yeah, it's these starters. All you need is a chance for sure, and it looks like he's going to get it. I don't know if we're going to get into him in the next 3 picks. Probably not from what I've seen in a couple of drafts, but from your eyes and watching them as prospects, can you fathom how someone thought Tyler Shuck was better than Shedeur Sanders?
Yes, I can fathom it. I don't see it. I'm not a big Shedeur Sanders fan, but I think that his ability to deliver the ball on time accurately is fantastic. But he has a below average NFL arm. He is, not a good athlete. He is slightly undersized for the position. Like I can see why teams wouldn't like Shedeur Sanders as a prospect and say, not every quarterback is a fit for every scheme in the NFL. And I don't think you look at the guys that, Kellen Moore has had success with, it's been robots, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert. Okay, Dak Prescott fits that mold, but Dak Prescott operates at such a different level between years in terms of pre and post snap processing. I just don't see the fit in that kind of Kellen Moore offense. So that's where I can see someone saying, yeah, Tyler Shucks are our type of quarterback more than someone like a Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, and do you think this is maybe the kind of player? It's not very often that I would advise using this as a strategy, but with Tyler Shuck, do you see an opportunity here? Spend this second round draft capital on him, wait until he's confirmed as a starter. Hopefully he starts well, and then you sell him as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I always say that any quarterback who's got stability, contractual long term in a Superflex is worth a first round pick. Yeah. If you can spend the 207 on Tyler Shuck and sell him for 2 seconds or a late first or whatever, I think that's absolutely a move you should be making.
Yeah, definitely agreed there. And we got one more run of 3 players left. Rich, who are you going to go with for your last 3?
So I'll go Cam Scatterbo, 22nd overall. We'll go Carl Williams and then Jalen Milroe to round out the second round.
Lovely. Who would you like to speak about from those?
Let's talk about Cam Scatterbo. He really pops in my model in terms of my rookie model from a running back perspective is looking at 3 things: age-adjusted production, receiving ability, and elusiveness. He is a second last year in terms of broken tackles behind Ashton Genty, which was as we said, Ashton Genty's a 1 of 1 in terms of his ability to break tackles. Yeah, for a guy his size, he is phenomenal as a receiver. It's not something we'd often prescribe to someone his build. The issue is that he's slow and he doesn't have that top end speed. Well, if I'm looking for a guy that can carry the ball between the tackles, first and second downs, and then potentially add in some juice on third downs, I'm not that worried about the top end speed. I think that often gets overblown. You look at someone over the last few years, Kyren Williams, Bucky Irving, they both fell because of slow 40s, and then they've shown that in the NFL, it's not really that needed. So I wouldn't be shocked if he takes over this backfield in New York. I think he's, well worth a dart throw at the back end of the second, and a very intriguing prospect that, again, like you said about Tyler Shuck, I would love to be able to get Cam Scatterbo. If he wins that starting job, start seeing, 60, 70% of the opportunities in New York, then maybe I can sell him for, 2 seconds or at least profit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Scatterbo, that's a real nice landing spot for him at New York. I'm taking him. I've already taken him in a couple of drafts already, so hopefully he does end up panning out quite nicely. Rich, that's us through 2 rounds. You've absolutely crushed it as expected. Everyone loves these 3rd round, these 4th round sleeper picks. You got a couple of guys who you're like, you know what? Try and look out for this guy if you're in the 3rd or in the 4th.
My guy throughout the whole process has been Jalen Royals. Obviously lands with your Chiefs.
Yep.
Okay, it was 4th round draft capital, which is a little bit disappointing, but I think he's an interesting prospect, interesting profile, and an interesting offense. One guy, I'm not the biggest fan of his, but if we're looking at landing spot and role, Pat Bryant is absolutely fascinating for me in terms of, we talked about Sean Payton and his track record. He has turned those power slots into absolute fantasy gold mines. You think of Marquez Colston, you think of Michael Thomas.
Yep.
Pat Bryant fits that mold. If he can, step in, take over that power slot role from Devon Vele, he could be an absolute steal as kind of a potential 3rd round pick.
Yeah, absolutely agree. That was one as well where, again, we try not to get too carried away with it whenever we see people go to Sean Payton, but he was one that caught my eye as well, for sure there, Rich. And we've already spoken about Shedeur Sanders, of course. The other quarterback that is coming up slightly a little bit at the minute, Dylan Gabriel. Do you give him any shot at all?
No, I think he's a career backup. I think that Shedeur Sanders has got a better chance of winning that starting job. I think he lacks the physical tools, unfortunately, to be an NFL quarterback. So I wouldn't be wasting a draft pick on him at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you, I think. And Rich, that does bring us to the end of an absolutely fantastic mock draft. It is a pleasure, as always, to have you on the show. Can you please remind everyone watching where can they find all your amazing work?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on, Max. It's always thoroughly enjoyable. If you want to find me, I'm at Dynasty Island on Twitter. But more importantly, all the important work is over at the FF Sanctuary YouTube page. That's where we're getting everything going. The rookie guide will be dropping very, very soon, maybe before this video is even out. So if you want a copy, silver tier and above members getting access to it over there.
Absolutely. Well worth it. I read through the full guide last year, Rich. It helped me a lot. And yeah, absolutely loved every single bit of it. So much work goes into it to make sure, guys, that you're going over there, you're subscribing, you're getting your hands on that as soon as possible. So thank you once again, Rich. Thank you as well, everybody watching at home. This has been another episode of the Dynasty Hotseat. Remember, for anything Dynasty you need to know, keep it locked on the Certified Inferno. See you next time. Bye-bye.